Oh, the countdown ends. We get on screen. Dustin Kava, great to see you. Welcome, everyone. Because Cannabis, presented by Wayward Media. My name is B.C. Wehman. With me, Dustin Kava. How you doing today, Dustin?
Doing amazing. Extremely excited.
I am excited to start our journey. We've known each other for a while, and I'm sure over the course of this show, we'll get to know each other better, rehash some of those fond memories, pun fully intended. But we share and met through a common connection through your past employment, co-founder of Inhalable Smoke Shop in Brunswick, Ohio. Me, looking for a device, a dry herb device to consume cannabis. Passions ignited in the moment, like a Harlequin romance novel right there in the floor of Inhalables in Brunswick, Ohio. And so after many years now, we find ourselves saying, hey, we got the ability to chat and talk. Why not get together, put out a show that talks about, there's a lot of shows, right? A lot of shows out there talking about this product, talking about cannabis, trying to take advantage of the big boon that is this industry. And so, but I think a lot of it talks about the product itself. And we are fascinated sometimes, Dustin, with marketing, with ingenuity, with current trends that are happening, with getting to know people, right? Making that human connection, which is the backbone of what Wayward Media is. And so I think to have our two brains get together, we'll have guests sometimes join us. I'm excited to really get to know you, get to talk about this product. How you feeling this morning? You ready to do it?
Yeah, no, I was feeling a little froggy earlier, but you know what? I'm ready. I'm into it. I'm excited. I'm feeling good now.
Oh, that's fantastic. So we are here, Wayward Media. That's our new website going, our media company that Dustin, myself, Anthony Trav putting together. Really exciting content we hope to have for you. So check us out. Right now, we're live on YouTube. We're going to shoot to have our shows every single week for Because Cannabis, but you can always check out all of the Wayward Media ideas, the shows, the concepts, things we have going on at wayward.media. That's our home. That's our home base where you get to find out everything about us. You can follow us socially at MeetWM. That's MEETWM at MeetWM. Pretty much everywhere. Pick your social. You can find us there. So looking forward to talking about it. Let's start here, Dustin. Let's just get started with this general overview, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk about, the past, how we got into this place, how we discovered cannabis, what are some interesting things about it. But what do you think about it right now? Like cannabis in the present, it's 2022. We're under new leadership is a presidency, so we're pushing towards maybe a little bit more liberal leanings, which tends to flow with potential legalization. In your brain, as either a crop or an industry, just when I say those words, cannabis business, cannabis industry, what does that trigger as far as where we're at today? It's February 4th, 2022.
It it's really funny because I hear the question and all I can think about is that everybody just wants to talk about the consumables end of it. And it's like there is so much more in this industry than just the consumable portion, just the act of smoking or the act of ingestion or however, so I'm thinking like as what I believe coming next is going to be more of the power of the ancillary business where people that are in love with this whole industry are not going to feel like they have to do something with touching plant matter. And so I love this idea of just the growth of the small business, the growth of the other opportunities that the industry lies.
It's going to be interesting to see. I think you're right. We talk, I get to know a lot of people who deal primarily just in the cultivation side of it through my experiences, both teaching at the Cleveland School of Cannabis and being more involved. So I feel like it's an area where I've always not been comfortable, been a little weaker at in my knowledge base, and have gained a lot in the past few years. So I feel like I spend a lot of time with people who are focused on growing the plant, right? And that's what everyone wants to do, whether it's grow their own at home, whether it's get into the cultivation of it, maybe get into CBD or Delta 8. I love the cool little side businesses that are going to come from this. You know what I think about all the time? Just randomly, because we've been talking about it in class, and I've really tried to force myself to learn a lot. Things like water content moisture levels, right, into testing. I've really gone this deep dive into the testing aspect of the plant and the different terpenes and gas chromatography versus high pressure liquid chromatography and mass spectrometry and what it can do. I can't even pronounce the words. Um, that's this whole other thing. And then there's all these other side businesses that come from it. And so that's the stuff we love, right? All these little random opportunities. So I think that's exciting. You get excited about test results? Is that something you're into when you think about the plant? You need to know its terpene content and its CBG content or its heavy metal parts per billion. Is that stuff you really care about when it comes to your product?
No. Um,
You know, it's
I
funny
wish I
because
was.
people say they do. If you talk to people, these hardcore, what I would say hardcore consumers who they always talk about the quality and seeing their lab results, but I think it's a very vocal minority. I really do. Like I don't need, I don't check the lab reports or the FDA guidelines on my Coca-Colas that I eat or that I drink or my Snickers bars, but for some reason I'm supposed to get into the results of it. I think it's great for the cultivator and the ability to learn from and master your craft, but I think the average consumer needing to know about it probably oversold as far as its importance. It's
Well,
cool
and I
stuff though.
mean, I don't want to. I don't want to. I have seen aspects of the industry throughout other states um, that leads me to believe that a lot of that testing can be or is a lie to begin with.
Oh, there's a whole
So
nother yes, that's a whole nother side conversation for sure.
I want to believe if I truly didn't have this understanding of how the world really works, then I would be like, yes, I like the idea of testing. I like the idea of knowing all that, but I'm not trusting it right now. I really truly don't trust it right now. And so I tend not to allow that to be the characteristic that's in my forethought. Should things get much more transparent across the board, and there's a lot of technology that we can talk about later on, but there's a lot of things that, transparency is going to be really big in this. And as much as we believe the lab results number is being transparent, I am more interested in how or the why and what exactly happened to get those numbers. So yeah, I yeah.
Do you though, it's funny because I'm a little older than you. I'm almost 50. And so, most of my life has been spent purchasing the plant first illicitly. I mean, I think that's how we all come to it. It's only been legally sold for 25 years. So if you've had it prior to then, you obviously got it illicitly. And then it slowly, as it becomes more medicinally or adult use legalized. And so it's always not, it's almost like you get what you get and you don't throw a fit kind of thing, right? Unless you knew a really good dude who had amazing things. And now we're at the point where it is so much craftsmanship put into it that I think we start to oversell as we talked about the testing results. And as you said, it is really true. There's a wide variety of the ability to get these results. And there's even, I think in California, maybe California, Oregon, some lawsuits that are happening because different labs can get different percentages of THC and then, different terpene contents and then these other variety of cannabinoids into it. And that can affect the pricing of what you can sell your product for. uh, it's just a whole weird world. I sometimes think it's very much for salesmanship, right? Because 36% dry flower THC sounds more impressive than 17%. But if that 36% is half CBD as well, or some other CBG, some other cannabinoids, it's basically offsetting it anyway. So it just becomes a marketing tool. It sounds like you fall on that point too. Like it's basically all these results, and it's cool to see, and it is nice to know about the safety, the pesticide residue, the fungal residue, like I said, the heavy metals, all those things. Any sort of pathogen is cool to find out about, but the percentages and the terpenes, I don't know. Are you a terpene guy? Like, does that matter? Do you need some limon into there, or are you a person who really gets into that, or is it once again end product? How's it make me feel?
Well, I mean, I believe that the terpenes are part of the end product to how I feel.
Mhm.
Like I do understand the value in all of it. Like I understand the value in knowing what the fuck is in your, like what's in your stuff. I
Yeah.
get the value of knowing, like of what some of those effects might be, but um, I definitely believe that even if you were to, I don't know, even if you were so educated with your own medicine and you knew what terpenes affected you in what ways, and you had yourself dialed down to the point where you found certain strains or something that absolutely worked for you. The truth is as a patient in this industry right now, it is extremely difficult to get something and maintain getting it for any amount of time. So if something works for, 8 months or something, it there's a great chance that that is not going to be around again next year in the same capacity. And so, like, I've learned as a patient that I cannot rely on that it's always worked or it's always going to be there. I need to be experimental. I need to be open to trying new things. I need to not be so terrified that, some of the effects during the experimentation of what's going to work may not be good temporarily. I think I want the one thing about this industry, and especially like being part of the glass and being part of, being a patient, um, is you can definitely see, especially in Ohio, how much the patient truly wants to do exactly what the doctor has talked about. And the problem is that they want to be a good patient. They really want to understand, but at the same point, they feel like there isn't that ability to experiment and kind of tweak it to what works for them. And so, if the doctor said, I want you to do X amount of dosage today, um, that's what they'll do. And that's only what they'll do. I think that there's definitely, in certain regards, I think that, this is not something that someone else is going to be able to tell you how it's going to make you feel or what it's going to be like. So I definitely, I want them to be more empowered, and I think that, yeah, I don't know. I think that there's a big portion of that that is just they're scared. A lot of new patients are over 50 or 60. They've never ever used this stuff before. They're not coming from the illicit background. They're not coming from doing it with their friends and that. They're coming from a total different world. And so uh yeah, it's hard.
It's an interesting thing to market and sell because ideally, like any product, right? There are people who want it to be exactly like a standardized medicine, for lack of a better term, whether you use it as a vice or as a medicinal basis. Either way, it's something that if you buy a Bud Light or if you use an Advil, it's pretty much going to affect you the same way every single time because of its ability and how it's created. But when you have an organic medicine or plant or vice, whatever, right? When you have this organic thing, it's tough to recreate exactly that same feeling every time, as you said. Plus, it's a product, that is consumed and you develop tolerances. And so it could change its effect on you. And so maybe you need to try different other cultivars to enhance your experience. But it's hard because people want to have that same medicine, so to speak, every single time to be just like another medicine. A chemically created medicine would make you feel, but it's impossible because it's grown in a light bulb that's off, or an extra bit of water that's added or not added, or a windstorm that shuts off electricity for a few hours that overstresses the plant can change a few different aspects of it. So it becomes very weird. And I think we need to help educate even the consumers to understand that it can't be the same experience every time. Like it can't be. There's always going to be a small difference. It can be similar, right? And people share similar experiences. You see strain reviews all the time on the internet. Hey, I tried this. It gives me a body high or a head high or these type of experiences. But even then, I feel something that it's different than other vices like alcohols. I think I shouldn't say that. Alcohol probably hits people a little differently, but it seems to be the similar high that the psychoactive effect that people get from alcohol is where cannabis can be very different from different people. I mean, we can have the same thing. You and I literally take this back and forth, though we probably shouldn't in the COVID era, but take this back and forth. We'll have to Puff Puff Pass killed by COVID. Take this in the COVID era, right? We would feel different. We'd feel different smoking the same thing. So I think that's an interesting part about it as medicine or even as a vice industry. It's unique in that regard.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, everything from the fact that what device you're using, how you're whether you're ingesting it or smoking it or putting it and rubbing it on your skin, or each and every usage case is going to be different. And yeah, it's but again, prescription pills and stuff like that are no different. You go back to your doctor and you say, "Hey, we need to adjust this a little bit," and the
Sure.
doctor helps you adjust. Um, and it needs to be understood that this is no different. You will be adjusting over time. And I think that's powerful, though. I think that what's great about this one utility, this one type of medicine, is it has that ability to adjust with you in an almost infinite amount of ways down the line for the next 30, 40 years, which I don't think a lot of other dialed in synthetic products can do for you.
Speaking of consumables, and I want to talk about COVID and its influence on cannabis, but I was just having a conversation. Danny McQuiston, we'll hopefully get him on the show. Check us out because cannabis, wayward.media. Gonna have lots of great guests coming up in the future. So Danny McQuiston, the owner of Lost Coast Alchemy out in California, in Eureka, in the middle of the Emerald Triangle. Was talking to him recently and just talking about new things that are there or other what's hot right in the California market. Over $6 billion of legalized cannabis sold last year, 2021. I was like, what are the cool kids taking these days, Danny? Nebulized cannabis is all the rage. Inhaler based puffs that have no combustible atmosphere. It'll be the first one he thinks to be FDA approved because there's zero combustion. They have found a way to completely nebulize it, free of smell, free of everything, just a puff direct because it's at an atomic level. I guess it gets to your lungs very, very quickly versus the smoke that has to go through. So it's automatically absorbed to the bloodstream.
Yeah,
Uh,
smaller molecules absorbs quicker.
Mind blown. Like of course, it can be a thing, but I guess I never really put thought into how you would do it. So those types of things are coming, the way we consume it. And when you talk about the topicals, right? CBD is a market that topicals and patches and even tinctures are very popular in. And while they're a part of THC or Delta 9, they're not very big, right? No one's really, it's a very small percentage of it. But I think these types of molecular ways that it transdermal and atomic level, so where I'm imbibing, I think that's the wave of the future, man, which is just some mind blown stuff right there, man. It just really surprises me.
Well, and we're only just starting now that research is legitimately being allowed to happen across the world. I mean, now is when, yeah, I think, we've even talked about it before about, it was safe. I believe that at one point this plant was safe. And I believe that there could be a time in the future where it is not so safe. We just we're finding more and more ways to ingest quicker and quicker or more in a least amount of time. And that to me is actually a scary portion of the medicine. I think, again, there's things across the board where there's usage cases that make sense for everyone. And yes, I believe that incredibly fast acting, nebulized, dosages that are absolutely timed, or weighed out in a specific proportion, guaranteed, can be really helpful for a mom with a child that you're trying to make sure that you don't ever overdose, or by accident, or you're trying to, get, you're just taking care of your family members. And I think that there are places for all of these things, but I would be really heartbroken to see a future where there is only a certain way you're allowed to partake. There's only a certain you're only allowed to do it through the inhaler because it is the safest quote unquote way.
Yeah, I
But
see
again,
what
yeah.
it almost like it turns on you, right? It's almost like the country says, we're going to legalize it, but we're actually going to take away some of the other aspects that we deem to be more dangerous, like regulating this plant, which people want, but then they may not want. You know, it's funny you say that when you start talking about the fastest ways to consume it. Once again, my experience talking with people who are very hardcore advocates of the plant, you know, they look forward to all these things, but they also seem to put a finger in the ears, like la 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 type of vibe when you start to talk about, well, if we do this, there are obvious repercussions. As more people talk to their doctors and admit to their doctors that they consume, more medical issues may become prevalent because things that were attributed to some other part of the body could be attributed to this. Tell your doctors everything, people. It's the best way for them to make a decision. And then when you have these super fast acting ingesting ways, like it's like the frat boy way of pouring the whiskey, going upside down and pouring straight into your backside, right? And just getting the straight alcohol, which is terrible, but it gets you like super drunk. Then one of those urban legends. It's almost too much, right? And you see the rise of cannabinoid hypermesis syndrome, which some cannabis advocates will
Yeah.
say is not a real thing, but it right, it's just so much high intensity oil in your body at one time. It makes sense that it could slow down the digestive tract and such. So uh it's just interesting how sometimes people really love the advancement of the different ways that the plant can be consumed and enjoyed, but then refuse to admit the negative consequences that could come from completely fast acting, you know, uh reaction to consuming the plant. Like there's gonna be a downside. Like right now, it is very difficult, I believe, to OD on the plant. I think we can all universally agree on that. But if you come up with these extremely fast acting ways, I could see an argument made that it could be very negative to the body to get that much delta 9 in your bloodstream or in your brain in one singular moment, right? I mean, there could be a negative to that.
And I don't like the idea that you don't have a chance to step yourself up, meaning like
Mm.
there's just no going back and there's no going back very, very, very quick. You know, it just is a terrifying thought, even for me who has, it truly has changed my life. The plant has truly allowed me to function in so many different ways. And even then, I can see myself being scared. Yeah. And I've used for 15 years, 20 years, and it just is what yeah. I don't want my grandmother experiencing that right now.
We still love the old slow and go, right? Just roll it up, chill back, and go. Has it been weird for you during COVID? Like, have you found yourself your habits changing? You know, COVID was weird on the industry. I think in 2019, early 2020, if you look at sales numbers and investment dollars, it seemed to be that it had hit its peak. Like 19, the end of 19 and 2020 beginning were traditionally or statistically a little down from what they had been in previous years. And it looked like maybe we were going to finally hit this plateau of kind of growth in the industry. COVID happens. It gets deemed an essential business in every state. And then the numbers, right? I mean, they just go and go. And it seems right now, no going back. We just had our 37th state legalized the other day, Mississippi. I mean, Miss a freaking Sippy.
I know.
Like, I mean, they are hardcore against this plant. Like, I mean, Texas is right there next to them. If Texas goes, look out. I mean, they're holding strong against adult use, but Texas goes adult use, just look out. Oklahoma is already the biggest saturation of medicinal patients in the U.S. Almost 5% of the Oklahomians.
And once I
Right.
saw them go, that's what changed my whole thought on the entire rest of the country. I honestly,
Once the deep
Oklahoma.
south starts going, then it's over. Now, then the very conservative legislative is like, once the south goes, it's going to be legal, or at least deschedulized, which is probably the way to go, and at least deschedulized. Has it changed you though? Like your habits, you thinking about it? I was joking earlier about the puff puff pass, but that's a real thing. Like I was with someone the other day, and maybe we normally would have shared, and I'm like, you got to bring your own. I'll bring my own. Like it's a weird thing. It's such was always equated as a very communal experience. And it's less communal right now. And you know what's funny? The edibles and stuff also take away from that community vibe of it, right? If you're just dosing and going. Has it changed you? Has it changed the way you think about it or the way you consume COVID?
It's never something I would admit in the circle, So like if I am in the circle, I'm going to partake. It is just what it is. I know myself. But I'm not gonna lie, there are so many times throughout the year or whatever that when I am smoking with someone else, yes, it is in the back of my head. And I am
Right?
thinking, I got 100 pipes in this room alone.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
You of
like
all people.
there's more than enough, there's more than enough ways to do this, but still there's something about it where I wanna, I don't know. I refuse to, nah, God, I'm just gonna keep stumbling and stumbling. The truth is it's irresponsible of me to not be thinking about that. Um, And I do think that in the future, it should be at least in our forefront of thought when we are smoking with someone else. Do I really believe that it's going to be the end all where everybody is going to stop smoking with everybody and it's going to become a very solitary act? I hope not. And I hope in some ways, yeah, I hope it really doesn't become like that, but I think it's irresponsible to not at least be having that discussion with the person
It
that
is
you're.
interesting. I mean, it's just interesting to see the increase in sales, which obviously means more people wanted to purchase it. Maybe we're stuck at home. Maybe just something to you're stuck at home more, or then people on the vice side just needing to chill out. Then you have the medicinal people. COVID raises anxiety levels and a variety of conditions exponentially, right? So you might have more consumption there. So it saw the rise of sales, like really heavily sales, but the decrease, I think, in the social partaking. So it'll be interesting. I don't think it'll go away. I mean, I think it'll come back. I think you see in the state of the world now is very torn on what to do as we grow out of it. COVID eventually probably becomes, like the flu or any other thing. Uh Bigger argument for me to make right now, but I think it'll come back. I don't think it ever goes away, but I just think it was interesting how it really changed the face of it. Like it was something that seemed down and became just like cannabis exploded and it's pushing
I know. And
legalization. I mean, I don't know.
while I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, gosh, when we were all in lockdown, what an amazing time to start experimenting with a little bit of cannabis. And at the same point, your employer couldn't even like drug test you or hit you with any of the normal human resources things that most people get terrified over
Yes.
for the things for work. So it was like, oh no, I can't. I like, what do you want me to do? Leave my house and go get like, yeah. So I honestly believe that it probably did bring a lot of people who wouldn't normally have been able to experiment and see if it worked for them. And again, this doesn't work for everybody, but I think it's a valid option to try in, you know, uh, in a whole number of situations. And I just think that, like, yeah, I think COVID, if anything, brought that opportunity, and I think it's awesome. You're right, a lot more people, and I'm wondering if is what's the number so far now for the last say 6 months or something where there has been a regain of going back to normal life? Is the numbers at the shops down?
We haven't really New Frontier Data, which is where I get a lot of information. New Frontier Data and J Biz Daily, just great sources. But New Frontier Data in particular is very much, I think, one of the experts when it comes to number crunching and data. It's a tough industry to track, right? We're still kind of dealing with people who are anti-regulation. We deal cash only, right? And so that makes some suspect potential aspects to it. Um, but we haven't seen the 2021 numbers come out yet. Like, so we have the 2020 numbers. It should be, we'll have them. When they do their year in review, we'll bring it up. We'll talk about it on the show because it's a great bit of data to dig into. So that'll definitely be on a future show because cannabis here at Wayward Media, digging into some of these sales numbers to be exciting to see. So we'll have to take a look at what did happen the end of 2021. The
I,
end of 2020 was huge across the board in all of these legal states. Um, but we'll see what the end of 2021 did and how it compares
I
going
mean,
forward.
gosh, when we originally were in lockdown, there were lines at the dispensary. I was waiting 40 minutes outside in order to get my medicine
That is
before I could even get
crazy.
in the building. Okay. I haven't been to a dispensary in Ohio in the last 6 months where I have had to wait at all.
Are you doing like the don't they do more call ahead stuff now? Like call ahead or
No.
online
See, and
reservation
that's
pickup
and
stuff?
I'm wondering if again, yes, is it the purchasing habits of how this actual sales happening is
I
has
think
changed, or
Yeah, I think
is
that's
it
for sure. I think just in general, there's a whole separate conversation, but I think as how we I had never even considered doing a call ahead grocery store pickup, and now I get annoyed when I gotta walk in the store and I can't just put it on my app, pay the extra dollar, roll up to the store and pop my trunk, right? Like it's a whole different world. And when you go in the store, half the people in the store are shopping for other people, right? They're those, so I do think it's changed not only how we shop, but the expectation. I think people need it or demand it now. So yeah, absolutely. I think there's less bodies walking into the place. Um anyway, so we're at now we have I just said we had our 37th state, Mississippi, go legalize for medicinal. We have 18 states that have adult use. We got a couple states going to hit sales this year. New York will be the biggest of all of those. Where you at? Are you feeling it? Do you want it to be federally legalized? Is that something that would excite you? Would you prefer legalization versus deschedulization off of Schedule One? Do you like the states? What's your vibe when it comes to just the overall? Do you think it'll happen soon, and do you want it to happen? Which I think are two different questions, two very different conversations.
I think that there will be a lot of pain if it did get legalized across the board. I do
Like,
like it. I'm more of a decriminalized guy. I prefer that over the legalization because, again, in Ohio, I can only vape my medicine. I don't like that. Like there's a whole different effect on me with the plant, with each and every strain with it. So, when I go to Michigan and I can legally, smoke it, even if it's the same strain, it's a whole different effect on my mind, on my body, on
sure.
how I feel the next day, on every single thing with it. And so, that's my big, we've talked about it. Like if you have the inhaler, is it all going to be that? In Ohio, it's all vape. I don't like these restrictions on there because I liked how much this plant had the ability to be used in so many different ways. And I think that's what real medicine is. And that is what real medicine that has the ability to work with you for decades is, like it is, it just, so I'm scared of full legalization. I truly am. But I also think that it's about time that some of the people who have been pioneering this industry under the table for the last 35 years finally have an option to maybe cash out on all of the innovation that they did. It's really funny when I start looking at industry where you can tell the difference between the cannabis business owners who were on the black market before. And you can tell the difference between the cannabis business owners who never knew what it was like for it to be illegal and only have the mentality of operating in a legal space. So, and both of them have a total different way of operating within the company. And I think that there will be a time when the people who still are looking behind their back every now and then, because that's just what they've been used to in the industry, they're actually going to be left in the dust. And it kind of hurts me because I truly believe that the ones without the fear are going to be the ones who maximize the innovation later. And just when you operate without fear, when you operate without having that, even if you know it's legal, you always had to look over your shoulder for 10 years before that. I don't care if it just turned legal in your state this year, your brain is not convinced yet. Like you've taught yourself for a long time that it's been something different. And so, yeah, I think that we will see in the next 10 years that switch over where the older guys maybe capitalize out of this now. And then eventually the newer guys are going to be the ones who truly innovate and blow this thing up across the board.
It's interesting because I think it's gonna be both, right? So you're gonna have and I agree with you. I think the best way to legalize this, in my opinion, is to just deschedulize it, take it off Schedule 1, and let the states do what the states do. That's not wonderful maybe for us who live in Ohio, because I don't know if Ohio is ready to go adult use, though I think as your neighboring states do, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Indiana, you're kind of forced to. But I think it's very difficult to regulate on a federal level. And I think some states that have successful programs that people enjoy to go a different direction would revolt already. You have legal, and you might have a new set of legal, and I think that would further complicate it. So I think the easiest way is to deschedulize it, which seems to be the current trend in Congress anyway on a national level. That most of the bills they pass that don't tend to make it out of the either the House or the Senate, whichever one it starts in, most of the bills they pass are about deschedulizing. You see a lot more efforts for, like the MORE Act with social equity, expungement of things, grants to get more people involved, more diverse ownership groups involved in the industry. So that probably happens. But I think it's weird because you're going to have this gigantic growth of, as you said, corporate, right? I just read this article about Coors making an infused seltzer, like a cannabis infused seltzer water kind of thing, basically taking the alcohol model, putting cannabis into it, big business coming in. Uh, but you always have this push, and we're trying to get this here in Ohio and for like home grow, right? So you're going to have these kind of crafts people who do it themselves. But I think, and I'm curious, if home grow gets past something like that, is that something you think hurts the industry? Some cultivators fear home grow and for people to do their own, some don't. I tend to be I don't think it's gonna hurt cultivators because it's difficult to do on your own well. It's like brewing your own beer. Brewing your own beer has not hurt the
Yes.
beer industry in the slightest. Roll your own tobacco has not hurt the cigarette companies in the slightest. I can make my own hamburgers here, but McDonald's, is still operating. There's 6 burger joints within a mile of me. So clearly, the ability to make your own hamburgers has not put it out. Would you be a home grower? Is that your thing? Like, is that something you would do and get going? Because it's still a lot of work. It's still a
Yeah,
lot of
no,
effort. So I don't think it hurts
honestly,
anything.
I mean, like my sister was the youngest person to complete the Master Gardener program ever. My mom is a master gardener. My brother has a genomics company for cannabis. Like these, my family probably has. My grandma is a master gardener or
Oh,
was,
snap.
but
Kava
all
family
these,
going deep.
it's crazy. But me, no, I'm an idiot. So uh, like I believe that it needs to be an option. I believe more options are always going to be better in this industry. There are people who really could manage their own medicine and manage it for quite a cost effective, a value point. So I think it's important. I think it's absolutely crucial for the industry going forward in the future. But I mean, we haven't even begun to see what some of these options. So far, all we know is home grow, and a dispensary, right? Or the recreational, like
Yeah.
and side of things. But what happens when there's a third side of stuff, and what will that look like? And it can definitely look like a lot of different things. What happens when cannabis is only sold in state stores and it's not a privately owned company? It's a state store where you're buying where the state provides you with the entirety of your inventory. And
Oh, from the different, almost like you would have liquor, right? So they have all the
that's
different
right.
brands of liquor inside a state store. So you have one big approved location or multiple approved locations that you could go into. You buy all your different brands, things like that. That is interesting. I was going to ask you about whether you think people have more loyalty on a legalized sales level towards the cultivator or the dispensary, which I think it leans cultivator. But the state store idea, I don't know why I never considered that. That is clearly an obvious direction to head that allows it, whether it's in its own building, whether it's in the grocery store. Like now, imagine have you like you walk through the fruit and vegetable section and you walk into the state cannabis store section behind your thing, behind the grocery store. It's a little separate entrance. You got to buy it in there, but you can just shop the various cultivators' brands like you would buy liquor. Gosh, I never even considered that. It's a great idea and probably the wave of the future if you had complete adult use sales. Gosh, it's really been manipulated. That's two different thoughts here by the dispensaries. We have need to bring it together for that. That's an interesting concept. I like that
And
idea.
and that's just one off the top of the head,
Well, then there's like
there are
online sales. I mean, if it opens up to online sales and you have state to state exportation, now you're having a whole different world, right? You already, I mean, that's already a whole different thing on top of just the state stores.
so I don't know, I think that there is a lot of option for the future. I think if, hopefully I do like, the idea of the states taking control of each different, within your own state is a different set of legislation and whatnot. I do think that that's probably the best option temporarily for now, for the next 15 to 20 years. But yeah, I'm interested to see what are some of these other solutions. What happens when Montana or some of these other guys who are in these incredibly rural areas, but your terrain, your environment, the amount of water available, the amount of electricity, all of these things affect the medicine in each one of these states. So I can definitely, it's just going to be interesting to see.
Also going to see probably as more states become comfortable with it, the rise of the consumption cafe, the bars, for lack of a better term, like cannabis bars, which are still a very small thing here, but I think will be the other big avenue. I think the dispensary model will become outdated at some point, like in maybe 10 years. Like just that concept of gatekeeping where you can purchase it seems interesting. And it seems way more cost efficient to have it done in one location. But it'll also then bring about the rise of the consumption cafe, which will be another interesting wrinkle as we go forward. There's gonna be some cool things coming down the road as it gets legal. Hopefully, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be. Don't think it'll be this year, but I think in the next few years, you're gonna see some of those changes. Do you think it happens soon? Like, do you think it happens super soon, or do you think it's still a decade away?
Oh no, I think you're going to be very impressed with
You think
how
so?
quickly things can come together in so many regards. Again, I never thought Oklahoma was ever in a million years going to do what they're doing right now. And so like, yes. And it took them a very short amount of time to have the saturation that they have. Uh, when you compare it to the 20 years or 15 years that California has had on them. Um, so yes, I think you're going to be impressed. I think there are states that are already working in certain regards that are moving a lot quicker than what most people give them credit for. And I also think again that as this research gets to be more and more allowed, as if it does get descheduled, and the grants can happen in the massive troves that they want to happen in. Yes, true innovation can happen in light speed at that point. And
Mm.
so it may just take a couple really simple barriers to knock down, and then all of a sudden you're going.
Well, I hope we are going to be still talking about it as it's going. I think this will be a fun journey then you and I, Dustin, to take together as we spend the next for however long we can keep doing this, learning about the industry, being able to look at those numbers go forward. So I think pretty good. I think a pretty good inaugural episode here of Because Cannabis. I want to end as we always will end each show with a cool cannabis fact or something new that you learned today. We got to get some graphics, Dustin. Some little like cool cannabis fact graphics
Fact
going.
time.
So like I said, because cannabis just getting started here on our flow with this show. We're going to be on Wayward Media. We're going to obviously follow us socially at Meet WM, MEETWM, audio wise, wherever you listen to your favorite audio podcast. This will also be available. Going to be talking each week, Dustin and I, about what's ever on our brain when it comes to cannabis. We're going to have guests join us also randomly in between there. The two of us can talk to them. So if you have someone in mind, you have an area of interest, another great place to go to at Meet WM, wherever you are socially. Toss a little comment in there. Let us know. Leave a comment in the YouTube box as well. We don't think we're going to get banned yet. We'll find out the hard way. We're learning this together. We're all going to take this journey. Why? Because cannabis, obviously. So something interesting. I think a cool fact is we should end on every week, Dustin. I learned something neat this week. I've been going down this cultivation journey. I don't know, just kind of learning about it and interesting things. And so one person taught me this week. I kind of learned two little neat things this week. First was just what loam is. You know what loam is? LOAM. Like when I say that term, do you know what that means?
No.
LOAM. So it is the top layer of the second layer, I should say, of dirt underneath the ground, right? It's kind of what they also call humus, HUMS. And so it's the ideal growing soil. And so when you get into your backyard, like say you walk into your backyard, your dirt or your soil, as we call it when we get all fancy, is kind of one of three main factors. It's either very loamy, which is this kind of clayish, little sandy, but really organically filled, rich material. It can be a little more clayish or it could be a little more sandy. And so by simply just like grabbing dirt and like squeezing it in your hand, and then opening your hand, and if it just falls away, like sandwood, then it's like too sandy and you have to add nutrients. Or if you squeeze it in your hand and then it kind of stays in its shape like clay would, then it's
Yeah.
obviously a very clay centric soil. But if you squeeze it and then you open your hand a little bit and you kind of poke it, like the Pillsbury Doughboy, like hee hee, and it kind of just crumbles a little bit. That's that ideal growing soil. Like these things I don't even think about. Never even occurred to me. And there's probably some master gardener, your family lineage, Dustin is like, I know that on back in the 1800s, right? Something like that. But it was just cool to be able to walk through. Or if you see a lot of earthworms, like that's a good soil. It was just an interesting thing that never occurred to me, that there are people that are walking out and just being like, you know, learning about soil types or loam. I also learned randomly as I was talking about cultivation, we was talking about the drying process, and that drying it too long uh, can actually hurt the THC, which then starts to bring in CBN and other cannabinoids, which can actually lower your percentage. So there's all these really specific sweet spots. Obviously the plant can grow. Just put a seed in the ground, right? It's sun, water, it's going to grow. But to get to that sweet spot of science with pH balances and moisture content, I watched this whole webinar from Bovita. I think that's how you pronounce it. The people that make those humidor little
Yeah.
packs. This
Yeah.
whole webinar about the moisture content and the trichomes and what the different, like a percentage can do to the potential THC potency, which is just mind blowing to me. And we keep talking about the medicine and how different it can be. And that's like a percentage in humidity can affect several percentage points on testing of potency, however you feel about that, but it can affect those things, which is crazy that that specificness can really alter how the plant ends up being consumed or how it makes you feel. So I really have enjoyed some of this, even though I will never, ever, I will zero in my life have patience to grow it and trim it and do all those things because it seems like so much work. But I love learning about it. I just thought it was cool. I thought that was a cool thing. Learning about dirt. Here's my soil tip to you, everyone, for the day. Grab it, squeeze it, give it a poke, lightly crumbles. It's loamy soil. Now you're ready to grow cannabis in your backyard if you can meet all the other 100,000 regulations. But outside of that, you got the soil. You got the soil set. What's something cool you learned this week, Dustin? Help us. Make us smarter.
I think not so much a fact, but it's more of a interesting thought within the industry. It is just how many different businesses you can start within this industry without a license.
Mm.
So, again, we keep, you have students that you are teaching at the school who, all want to get into the consumables and the plant matter thing. But I keep thinking like, yes, some of the businesses that you can start within the industry, which are going to be explosive in terms of the need for them. Just what you're doing, education. Some of the other ones you don't need any licenses for would be like the security guard. If you want to do security for outside the dispensaries, or you can do anything from, develop software for these guys
Oh,
or
app software,
packaging.
That's
It's
gonna be, yeah,
going to be
the
huge.
software development side of this, which has got there are some out there, but that's tip of the iceberg, right? The lawyers and accountants, that's we always talk about. I just had another guest speaker in a class who the very first words they mentioned were "get a lawyer, get an accountant," which I know is two of your probably your first
Yes.
tip. Every time we meet with our students, you always say that. And it's funny. It's the very first thing he told them. And I'm like, you're going to hear this again in 2 weeks when Dustin joins you. Because it's true. He's like, look, I got the plant down. I need people that specialize. So real estate people, people who understand regulations, of course, like no licenses, but just knowledge. The knowledge about the industry is going to be a very saleable thing, right?
I
Which is
mean,
pretty
heck,
cool.
we didn't even think about it, but then you got staffing stuff, like how
Yeah.
do you staff the industry? How do you get consulting services? And there is just so many different opportunities for you to jump into this industry if it's something you believe in without having to spend $1 million in licensing. And I just think that yes, we've only seen so much explosion across the board as it stands today. But now, as the industry starts vertically integrating outward, some of these other businesses are going to be start to get gobbled up soon too. And so, yeah, I just think that there's incredible amounts of opportunity in the next 10 to 15 years.
We'll definitely have to. We'll have a ton, I think, of ancillary business owners to this space to highlight those opportunities. What I think is cool, right? There's so many things with very little, by the way, capital to get started, right? I mean, transportation services. I know, obviously, to be a lawyer or accountant, it requires schooling, but you don't have to have a capital to buy a brick and mortar building. Once you get the educational aspect of it, then it's a service, right? The service part of it. Right now, it's so heavy in the manufacturing and retail, but I think these service aspects of people that specialize in, irrigation specialists, someone who's been a plumber who now can apply those skills to specifically drip management and water administration to cannabis that can specialize in these things, or electricians, ventilation specialists, right, who work on
Yes.
airflow and circulation, right? These HVAC dudes who've been toiling away, like, can go and apply that skill to a plant facility, right? And just never have to touch the plant, don't have to deal with all the capital, don't have to deal with the taxation limitations. Just a dude or a lady who's out there doing their thing, like fixing something. So the service industry, I think, will turn and you're going to find specialists. And then just the agricultural part, right? Once farmers get going, we really start farming it like we do corn and soybeans and everything else on a big level. Pros and cons, though, obviously. But yeah, I think that's going to be very exciting stuff. As I think this is, Dustin. I think this show is going to be exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes. Final words here. Thank you for those cool facts. Because cannabis, Wayward Media, wayward.media. Check us out. We'll have some great guests coming forward. Follow us at MeetWM, MEETWM. I don't know. That's, I think, where we end today. Kind of good show, good hour conversation. Keep going. We'll be back next Friday, 10 a.m. Same time, same place. Follow us. Looking forward to it, Dustin. You
Me
ready?
too.
You ready to do this? You fired up?
I am fired up.
I am fired up too, man. All right, let's end the show. Let's do it.